Do you like this animation? Do you want to know how I made it? Well, you're in luck, because today I'm going to show you exactly how I made it, and how you can make your animations bouncy and smooth just like this. For this animation, I used puppet animation in Flash, but these techniques are pretty much apply to any program and any style of animation. Before we start, I'd like to give a minor flashing warning because a lot of this video is very sped up footage of drawing and animating. It flashes a little bit. Also, for the sake of copyright, I've put a generic song behind the final animation. I'll link the YouTube short with the original music in the description.
And now back to the show!
The plan is to make this trend where a character is falling and hitting some cute feminine poses, but with my character, Bean. So before even thinking about animation, I have to create a posable puppet for each pose I want her to do. So I started by just sketching out the poses like I usually do when drawing anything. The most important part of making a puppet for animation is that every single item needs to be its own layer. I use folders in my drawing program so that I can have a line art and color layer for each object while keeping everything organized. If you're unsure what needs to be on its own layer, think about what moves separately to everything else. Remember that each joint should be able to move. Any pieces of loose fabric or hair that might drag behind the character should also be separated. Once you start animating, you'll get a better feel for what you need separated and what can be grouped together. As a general rule of thumb, if you're not sure if you want to separate it or not, just separate it anyway. Once the model is animated, the underneath parts will show, and you never know if you'll want to push the movement further than planned, so make sure each part is fully drawn underneath everything. Once I'm happy with the art and the details, I export every layer as an individual PNG. If you're doing the art in your animation program, just make sure each piece is on its own object so you can move them around easily. In my case, I'm going to take the images into Flash, remove the transparent areas from the objects, and turn every single piece into a symbol. I put all of the symbols into one big symbol as well to make it easier to use. If you have the option, make sure the pivot point of each piece is set to the point it moves from. For example, the lower leg joins at the knee, the upper leg joins at the hips, the head joins at the neck, etc. I make sure everything's laid correctly so it looks right, and also make sure that I can select everything easily. Before I get to pose the model, I want to block out the general movement. Because the character is bouncing in the air, I animate the entire thing as if it was a solid object, like a ball being thrown. This helps me visualize where her center of mass is and how gravity is affecting her. Notice how I'm pacing out my frames on the timeline pretty loosely. For frame-by-frame animation like this, you really don't need a lot of keyframes. As long as the character follows a smooth arc, it'll look good. For this movement, I'm having her go up and then slowly start to come down. In this stage, it's very important to have no jittering at all. Make sure she follows a smooth curve and doesn't jolt around too much. Now that we have the base animation for the character, we can animate the limbs. This is where all the prep work for making the puppet comes in. For this, all you need to understand is squash and stretch and secondary motion. Focus on one part at a time and have it follow the main movement. I make everything drag slightly behind whatever it's connected to while paying attention to gravity. While the character moves up, the leg is dragged down slightly, but when she slows down, the leg keeps going up for a bit. It creates a feeling of momentum and makes her feel alive. I do this for every limb, just rotating them slightly to follow the movement with that secondary action. For soft objects like the hair and skirt, I do the same thing, secondary action just dragging slightly behind the body. Plus, I add some squash and stretch. When the hair is being dragged down, I stretch the object down and squish it in slightly. When it's bouncing back up, I squish it upwards and stretch it out sideways a bit. This adds so much bouncy character to the movement, I love it so much. When squashing and stretching, it's important to remember that every object must always maintain its mass. If you stretch something down, you must squish it in, and vice versa. So when it's squished up, you must stretch it out. That's all there is to it. I just repeat this for every pose, making sure nothing is jittering around, she follows a curve, the movement is smooth, and it feels weighty and the momentum is satisfying. This is animated at 24 frames per second, mostly on 2s and 3s, meaning each keyframe holds for 2 or 3 frames. A lot of people think you need to animate on 1s for smooth movement, but animating on 1s can actually make your animation way more jittery. I like to keep the frames as spaced out as possible to avoid jitter and keep things simple. If you think it looks choppy, you can always add in-betweens later. If you don't have a timeline like this in your program, I'd suggest turning the frame rate down to 12 frames per second, just like animating on 2s, or 8 frames per second, which is like animating on 3s. When I finished animating Bean, I decided to add a second character at the end to catch Bean before she hits the ground. For him, I followed the same steps, sketched him out, broke him up into pieces, imported him into Flash, organized all his layers, then I started blocking. Since I wanted Bean to be in a different position in this scene, I mixed and matched pieces from all 4 of my puppets to create a new pose without having to draw anything else. Because of this, one of her feet ended up being backwards, but I'm sure nobody noticed. I bet you didn't notice the backwards hand in this pose. This scene has Tokarev holding Bean, so I had them move together. But I made Bean drag behind just a little bit, treating her similarly to the secondary action we talked about earlier. Then I animated the details like before, using the principles of secondary action and squash and stretch to create weight and momentum. Hey, I'm not sponsored, but I really wanted to let you know that Tokarev, the owner of this character who shows up at the end of this animation, has a plushie on pre-order right now, and I really want it, but they don't have enough pre-orders yet. So if that looks interesting, I'll put a link to that in the description as well. Not sponsored, I just genuinely really want this plushie to get made, and I want your help. Okay, thank you, bye. Bonus! For the intro, I made a mini puppet for my mini-me. I used exactly the same techniques, just on a way simpler character. I used a lot of squash and stretch as the little mini bean bounces around. This adds a lot of energy and personality to the movement, since the legs don't actually move. Then I went back through and added secondary action to the little details to make it feel more fluid and bouncy. It really is simple, but just this little bit of extra movement can really improve the quality of your animations by a huge margin. And that's the final animation. I hope you enjoyed this video. First time making a tutorial, kinda nervous. I know a lot of you are waiting on the draw this in your style results, and I promise you I have not forgotten. I made this video to practice making long form because it's kinda scary, and I needed to break the ice with something a little smaller. I hope that's okay. Alright, see you guys in the next one. Bye!